Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Back to that lemon light city, sweet hope, Chicago. 2 is 4, 4 4 6. Come on, baby, now get your business fixed. Come on, honey, don't you?
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Meyers. Avi Meyers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine, a presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. All the shows are on YouTube. Almost 200,000 shows watched, so check us out. Real big on community policing. Caps24.org. Sonny in his spare time is chairman of the District Advisory Committee for the 24th District Police Department. And he runs a website. You can find all the meetings in Rogers Park, West Rogers Park, parts of Edgewater by going to caps24.org. We very strongly urge you to attend your community policing meeting. And as a matter of fact, my first introduction from a police standpoint to community policing, you could even call him my initial rabbi of community policing, or the person who was in my who gave me my confirmation or whatever. Probably something he may regret at this point in time. Not that there was an official ceremony. is the deputy chief of the Chicago Police Department, the highest-ranking Jewish officer going. Somebody who announced on the last show, to my surprise, that his retirement is coming soon, but he has been gracious enough to come back here. We thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I always hear nothing but, as one of the judges who was on an earlier show said, he never had heard anybody say a bad word about you. Deputy Chief Bruce Rottner, how are you?
I'm great, Avi. Thanks for having me.
First of all, thank you, and it's my pleasure. And there's so much going on. And you, first of all, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate the fact that you're going to fill me in. I've got to find new sources now. I have to.
I think you've developed a few of your own sources over the years, Avi. So.
Yeah, no, and by the way, a lot of it is thanks to you, and some of the best people I know are people that you had under your command.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've had a lot of great people working with me over the years, so that's what you don't forget when you leave.
Yeah. Now this is this is a new era for Chicago right now.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. New mayor, new superintendent. Superintendent McCarthy was recently confirmed by the city council, and he's up and running. As most of us are aware, he's already put more police officers back on the street. He disbanded a few citywide units, put those officers back in the areas and in the districts, primarily on the south side. That was 500 officers. We in Area 3, and just so you know, Area 3 goes from Fullerton on the south to the city limits on the north, or Howard Street, and from the lakefront to the river on the west. We benefited by 2 teams, which are under my command in the area, and I put them in places we think we need them, primarily where there's violence, gang problems, things like that. More recently, he took about 150 more administrative people out of behind desk duty and put them into some of the districts up north. While we won't be getting as many as some of the south side districts got, obviously we don't have the violence that the south side and west side has. So I guess it's a double-edged sword. People are always screaming for more police, but do we need more police? Absolutely, no question about it. If you gave me 40 more people, we could do really a lot of good things with them. But we're very happy to have gotten these 20 people. And like I say, to varying degrees, the districts in my area at least, which are the 19th, the 20th, the 23rd, and 24th district, will be getting 4 or 5 additional people. And us, that means a lot.
No, each person is going to be able to cover a specific. I mean, we should give people an idea. Like what can an individual police officer do?
Well, it depends on your perspective. I mean, it's like saying what can an individual do? What can one man do? And I always felt they could always do a lot. I think all of us have seen or remembered one police officer who may have made a we hope, a positive impact on someone's life.
A lot of them here.
You know, there was a day when police officers all walked. That was in the 30s and 40s and into the 50s. What happened in 1961 when O.W. Wilson came in, just from a historical perspective, is because society had become mobile, we needed to become mobile. So we put all police officers into cars. And while we were able to respond much quicker, obviously, to crime calls, we also lost that personal touch. Everybody knew who the cop walking on the beat was. He was and back then it was all he's. There were no women in patrol back then. But that beat officer became a very important part of neighborhood life. And he knew everybody's children, he knew where the problems were. And when we went into cars, we kind of lost that. And that's why I was so excited back in 1993 when community policing started. Because one of the concepts, the basic tenets, was to get people to get in touch with their police officers again, the police officers who actually are patrolling their homes, protecting their families, protecting their property, and, you know, forming that skirmish line between, you know, us and the bad guys. And that's why I was always a big proponent of community policing.
Yeah, there were a lot of good things. Not to mention things like it used to be that police officers would rotate between shifts.
Right. Police officers, you know, when I came in '72 and up to, you know, a certain point in the '80s, we rotated every 28 days. You were on the midnight shift, then you went to the afternoon shift, then the day shift, and every fourth Thursday we rotated. Now everybody's on straight shifts. So, and it's done by seniority. 80% of every officer is able to bid on the shift he or she wants. Obviously, you have younger officers working the midnight shift, or what we call the first watch. You know, the officers with 8 to 10 to 12 years on, depending on what district you're in, work the afternoons. And the more mature officers, the older officers, work generally days. So I know when I was commander in 24, I think, and I still think to this day, that we had the best first watch in the city. You know, the officers working midnights are, you know, young, aggressive, willing to learn, and, you know, on midnights around here it gets pretty quiet, you know, but they were always out there digging, always looking for things to do, and, you know, I'll never forget those people. So, like I say, you know, the downside, of course, is you may be on midnights for 3, 4, 5 years, you know, and midnights is a very difficult, challenging time, you know, physically, family-wise, and things like that. But you know, you knew it coming on, so, you know, that's the way it goes. You know, our business is 24/7. We never close.
Yeah, you wouldn't work out very well if you did.
No, absolutely not.
So, you know, I'm hearing noises about, you know, do you see anything happening with community police? I mean, first of all, there already is, you know, all the extra people help. The community policing offices under the previous superintendent were cut drastically. Do you see any increase coming up over the course of time?
I don't necessarily see an increase, because I know, again, Superintendent McCarthy, you know, his mandate was to get more cops on the street, and he's actually doing that. You know, he's already put 650 more policemen into districts. With that being said, you know, at a high point, we had 7 police officers in community policing, 5 on days, 2 on afternoons, and a sergeant in there. Now we're down to 2 officers in community policing. So,
And the sergeant.
And the sergeant, correct. So not only do we have to adjust, but citizens have to adjust to that, you know, and just understand that some of the services we used to deliver when we were really, you know, had a lot of people in there, we just can't deliver anymore. But when I started in community policing, which was then called neighborhood relations back in 1979, there was a sergeant and 1 person, and that was it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we did everything. So, you know, as things progress and evolve, everybody becomes a specialist. You know, we had 1 officer doing domestic violence, 1 officer doing court advocacy, 1 officer doing seniors, 1 officer doing youth programs, you know. So now, you know, I know in the 24th District, Carrie Horstein and Audie Manos is there under Sergeant Allison Christian, and they've consolidated a lot of those roles, and they're 2 outstanding police officers. So, you know, I always say, Avi, when people are hungry, they don't care who feeds them as long as they get fed. And it's basically the same thing. As long as these two officers can get the job done, we'll get the job done. You know, the real thrust is putting officers back on the street because that's where the violence is, you know. And I think Superintendent McCarthy is really on the right track here doing this. I mean, all of us, when I say us, those who work for the police department, being city employees, are all residents of this city. So we have a vested interest, obviously, in keeping our streets safe. You know, and while, you know, sometimes they say, well, you know, if you, you know, work in the Englewood district, you should live in the Englewood district. I don't agree with that at all. You know, we still live in the city, and what happens in Englewood impacts us up here in West Rogers Park, and what happens in Galewood impacts, you know, Brighton Park. So, you know, everything's kind of interrelated here. So, like I say, I think McCarthy's on the right track. He's instituted a New York-style accountability strategy, which is called CompStat. As a matter of fact, last Thursday, Area 3 was the subject of CompStat. They call you the Monday...
Which is your area.
Which is my area. And they call you the Monday before the CompStat meeting and tell you you're up to bat on Thursday. What they look at and what the superintendent looks at, and this is how they do it in New York, and they had tremendous success in New York reducing crime. Basically, they're not looking at the whole year. In other words, in your district, you may be up, 20 shootings for the last month. But overall, your shootings are still down over last year. But you may have blips in, let's say, robbery. And what we really focus on in these meetings and what our focus is at an department are shootings, murders, and street robberies, because street robberies are a good indicator of violence. Those are the three things we really focus on. So if your robberies go up, like, you know, from 3 last month or 3 7 days ago to 9, that's a blip, and that's what they look at. So while we may not have as much violence up here in Area 3, we did have a blip in robberies in a few of our districts, and that's why we were called up. The superintendent's first mandate was, he says, I can't hold district commanders accountable unless I give them the people to use, and that was one of the reasons he put so many people in these districts. CompStat is really based on...
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Of course it does. Of course it does. Because, you know, I as a deputy chief have 4 commanders under me. And if they don't have the tools, how can I hold them accountable? So we're giving them the tools. And CompStat really drills down to date of the crime, day of the crime, time of the crime, method of the crime. And if you can analyze all those things and put them up on maps, it becomes very simple to see where your clusters are of crimes, where your robberies are, where your shootings are, you know, where not so much in our area, but where your murders are. Then you have to drill down. Are they gang related? Are they domestic related? And all this, what the superintendent is saying is he expects commanders to know everything about their districts, and he takes them to task on it. Now, I understand that New York's CompStat process may be a little more adversarial than ours is, but at ours he asks some really hard questions, but fair questions, you know. Fortunately, I knew the answers, and fortunately, my commanders, for the most part, knew the answers, but it's a new process to us, so it's still a work in progress. And I think it'll be something that'll really, really be good for our commanders, because it will give them a sense of entitlement, a sense of control over their own districts and over their own destinies, for that matter.
That sounds very good. And yeah, there are advantages sometimes when you bring somebody in from outside, but I think the fact that he himself was walking a beat himself or patrolling a beat, rather.
Right. I think every organization sometimes needs, you know, fresh blood to look at things through fresh eyes, you know. Sometimes I think that, you know, we've been talking for the last how many years about let's think out of the box, and sometimes we wonder, well, why don't we try thinking inside the box sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, being an old-time policeman, you know, there's no substitute for good police work, for good street work, for officers making street stops, for making contact cards. That's how you catch bad guys. You know, you don't necessarily catch them, you know, sitting behind a desk, you know. The technology we have probably is among the best in the country. So what we're doing now is blending the technology with the street sense of our officers. And that's why we will succeed, in reducing crime.
No, one of the things you mentioned earlier about the policemen in the communities getting to know each other, one of the things I have found in community policing meetings over the year is that, unless you've had a recent change, which we did, there's a lot of people that actually have gotten to know the policemen that do patrol the streets at certain times.
Right.
And there has been contact, and by coming to the community policing meetings and having the contact, it sort of lifts a barrier that might have been mistrust in a previous day and age.
Well, one of the promises of community policing, and because we needed to get it out, perhaps it wasn't totally explained to people. One of the things we promised them is the same officers would be working the same beats for a year, and that really wasn't what was happening, because officers have opportunities to transfer. Officers get promoted. There's a lot of, they go on the medical, things like that. So there wasn't always that consistency. And I've really found in the last 4 or 5 years, we're much more consistent about manning the cars with the same people for the year. I mean, officers get their car. This is their neighborhood. This is their beat. And like we always say, it's an old adage, but it's still true. You're the superintendent of your beat. This is your beat. And I think we've given our officers a lot more autonomy to run their beat. We have challenged them to be creative. One of the big differences between now and, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years ago is every strategy came from headquarters, whether it was the old 11th State or currently 35th in Michigan. Now, and especially under this superintendent, it's your district commander. Do what you need to do. Nobody from down there is going to tell you you have to do it this way, because we have 25 districts, which are 25 basic little police departments, basically. So, and I'm really glad to see that. It's called flattening the organization. The real test will be in 2 or 3 years if they're still doing that, because everyone starts out with the best intentions. But like I say, I really have a lot of hope for Superintendent McCarthy. I think because he knows our culture, he was a cop, that, he really understands what we're trying to do. He's a hard driver, he's a hard charger, and of course he's a New Yorker, and at the meeting I just said something about the Cubs kicking the Yankees butt, and I know he was at the game Sunday night with a bunch of New York policemen who had come in, and I was actually at a meeting with him on Monday morning, and he looked a little tired, but but he was there early, so that's a good thing.
No, it is a good thing. I like the idea, because one of the things I've seen is the people that are really close to the situation understand the situation better than somebody sitting several levels above.
Sure. And he doesn't appear to be a micromanager. And, and I think, that kind of leads, to the mayor. I don't think the mayor's a micromanager. I think this mayor says, you're superintendent of police, you run the department. I'm not getting involved, in the day-to-day operations of a police department. I'm the mayor. And I think the superintendent is sending us the next message, the same message. You are the district commander of the 24th district. You run your district. I'm not getting involved in your day-to-day operation. All I want are results, and I want accountability, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I like that whole idea very much. And hey, with me, it even translates to sports. The owners that tell their people who have taken the NBA draft are the owners who are going to be drafting again in the lottery next year and not being in the playoffs.
I agree.
So, no, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit about National Night Out, because everybody is so shy in the 24th District. I invited every single beat facilitator to come today. The only beat facilitators that are here are Sonny and I, but he's behind the camera and I'm the host anyway. Nobody else took us up. Everybody is, without mentioning names and ranks, I mean, top to bottom, we've got some very, very excellent police officers who are extraordinarily camera shy.
Yeah.
So
I guess all my years in neighborhood relations kind of made me a ham, but National Night Out, and historically, I mean, it started with a very simple idea. It was just on one night, and it's normally the first Tuesday in August, that everybody in the neighborhood would just go out and turn on their porch light, or whatever lamp they had. And it was more of a symbolic gesture against crime, against violence. In other words, it said, we're all in this together. And I don't know, and you may know, I don't know exactly what city it started in.
No, I have no idea.
But it became a national effort. And through the years, it's evolved, especially here in Chicago, into basically, all the beats getting together and doing some crime prevention activities. 24 was always kind of unique that each beat did their own activity. Most of the other districts in the city have one joint effort, whether it's at a park, whether it's at a school, whether it's at a church, but in 24, each beat did their own thing. Now I think we've consolidated it a bit, only because of the economics of it and everything else, But I think in 24 we do it, the 20, where obviously I'm partial towards 24. But I think we do it, as well, if not better than anybody in the city. And it's really, really, really terrific for our police officers to come out and see all these people who really appreciate what they do, because in police work, you can become a little bit cynical because usually when you're called, nobody's inviting you to dinner. No one wants to give you a present. They're inviting you in their home because they have a problem, But when we see people out there in a positive manner, thanking us, appreciating us, for most police officers, that's all they need. That's all they're looking for, is someone to say thank you for them. And, National Night Out in 24, I think, is really unique that we have so much involvement on each beat. You've been, and Sonny have been to numerous National Nights Out filming, and you can really see kind of the uplifting spirit of that, So I think we've taken this really simple idea and kind of made it into a really tremendous expression of anti-crime initiatives and appreciation for the police.
Yeah, you know what? This year, actually, for the first time, we're actually going to have a crime-related activity in my beat in 2412. There was a ton of Latin King graffiti and some incidents
Correct.
on the 6700 block of Artesian. Even despite city budget cuts, the city came out, not as quick as they used to because not all the services are there anymore, but they got rid of the graffiti. Sergeant Allison Christian, before she went on furlough, wanted to have us to meet. She wanted to meet with us and let everybody know that the police were interested and involved. So we met at the police station. It was last Thursday night, the night before. She stayed extra long, before her furlough started. There were 17 neighbors out there. A lot of good information was exchanged. The police made a special effort that night. They came down the block, and sure enough, there was a whole Latin King meeting over there the same day their graffiti had been removed. So they got 2 for drinking in the public way, and I think one might have been intoxicated. I'm not sure about that. 1 criminal trespass, but it let those people know that, hey, the police are watching you.
Sure.
So I think we're going to have a combined activity on that 6700 block of Artesian. And interestingly enough, by the way, in the 24th district, we're very proud of the fact, well, first of all, we wish all the beats were in the same situation. We're the only beat where robberies were actually down.
Right.
And some of that is just circumstance.
Well, some of it's circumstance, some of it's luck, and but a lot of it is awareness of people, how not to become victim, which is something that we teach, which you teach at beat meetings, and the educational component can't be underestimated. We for years have gone out and done burglary prevention seminars, robbery prevention seminars, and people actually listen to these things and they use a lot of the tips that we give them, how to prevent being a victim. And, it's not just rhetoric, it's not just cliches, it's something we really hope people listen to, and, and that can be one reason that robberies can be down, and I always say in an area where there's gangs, especially up here, where we don't, again, have the gang activity that we do in other parts of the city, the only way you deal with gang members is to arrest them. The police aren't social workers. We're not looking for the causes. We're not looking, see, they were abused by their mother or something like that. That's not our job. Our job is to identify them and arrest them when warranted, And it's their choice to be in a gang, not our choice, And if they don't like being arrested, then, drop out of the gang. Yeah, it's going to take a beating to get you out, but be that as it may. So, like I say, there's so few of them compared to the general population. It's like, why are we scared of them? Well, I understand. I don't want to oversimplify it. I mean, a lot of them are gunned up and things like that, But basically, they rule by intimidation. And if people want to be intimidated, again, that's their choice. But a lot of people have chosen not to be and have stood up to them, And in a neighborhood like this, it's a lot easier to stand up to them because you do have such great, not only police support, but community support. And you have people like Sonny who are really involved in court advocacy, which I know the judges were talking about earlier tonight, which really is something that works great. So, and we have a very strong court advocacy group up here.
Right, I want to mention Rick Jones and Ed Smith also, as long as we're mentioning people.
Yes, right, two excellent people, and God bless them. I mean, they're in court all the time. And it takes people committed like that to do it. I understand not everybody can. People are working longer and harder these days. They're working 10, 12 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, and you get home, you're tired. You don't want to go to a CAPS meeting. You don't want to, or you can't take a day off of work to go follow a court case. So thank God for people like Eddie Smith, who's been doing this for years, and Sonny and Rick Jones. Those are the people that really make these things work.
Yeah, they really do, and it does make a difference. It really does. It's funny. I was talking to Abden Pialish about community policing, the Sun-Times reporter, and we don't agree on a ton of stuff. He did go to a community policing meeting. He didn't quite understand it. I think he also lives in a peaceful neighborhood, and I also think because he's downtown at the Sun-Times, busy covering that stuff, that he doesn't see what goes on in the neighborhood. But for the people that really see what goes on in a neighborhood,
sure.
It's important. And the fact that these people on the 6700 block of Artesian are not only letting the police know, but letting their neighbors know, and they're working closely with the police. The police here over the years, when there's a new gang presence, want to quash it right away and really go to bat on it, which has been great.
Sure. And I know that, I've talked to Alderman Silverstein a number of times since she's been elected, and she's constantly giving us information from constituents, and she talks to Commander Wick quite a great deal. So, our public officials up here in Area 3, especially in this ward, Joe Moore and Pat O'Connor, who's just terrific, and now Harry Osterman and Edgewater and some of the others, are real partners with the police department. I mean, they're, I'm not a politician, I'm not political at all, but like I say, they're really hardworking public servants, and we've always had a great relationship. And when you can have people like that on your side helping you, you've got a great situation.
Well, we got about 90 seconds left, and I'm going to turn it over to you. What would you like to tell people?
Well, I just, by the time you're watching this, I've been retired now for probably about 2 weeks. Almost 40 years on the Chicago Police Department, and I have absolutely no regrets at all. Every day's been a good day. Some days were just better than others. And it's like I always say, when you leave something, you don't miss the circus, you miss the clowns. I've made a lot of lifelong friends here. I'm very happy that I made it out alive, which is terrific. And I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life. There is life beyond the police department. But I appreciate everybody I've met, and I want to thank all of you for being so supportive of the Chicago Police Department.
And I want to thank you, and I can't begin to tell you how many people are supportive of the police department because of you specifically and the people within the police department that you have inspired, to do a good job, and that makes a big difference.
Well, it's always a two-way street, and like I say, we no matter what they say, I still have faith in policemen, and I still have faith in people that will do the right thing and be there when you need them, and I've never been disappointed in that sense.
Well, whenever you do get your next role, and I'm sure there's a demand for you, I know there's a demand for you, let's put it that way. Not that I know what he's doing, I don't, okay?
Yeah, I need a job, too.
We'd like to have you back on.
Absolutely.
And we want to thank you for everything over the years, and hope to be in contact still.
Thank you, Avi. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks, Sonny.